Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Anachari Yamuna Tira Anachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Paramahamsa Parivajacharya Ashtodara Shadashi Samadhi Divine Grace Ace Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajacharya Ashtodara Shadashi Samadhi Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Govina Sham Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Ganga Yamunamai Ki Jai Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this morning we're reading from srimadbhagavatam, Canto 4, entitled Creation of the Fourth Order, Chapter 21, Instructions by Maharaj Prithu. Text 5. Okay. So it's 4:21:5. You got it? Yeah. Has everybody got it? Mm-hmm. Shankadundu Bigoshena Brahma Goshena Charbijam Vivesha Bhavanam Vira Stuyamano Gatasmayaha Shankadundu Vigoshena Brahmagoshena Chart Vijam Vivesha Bhavanam Vira Stuyamano Gatasmayaha Shankadundu Vigoshena Brahmagoshena Chart Vijam Vivesha Bhavanam Vira Stuyamano Gatasmayaha Alright, word by word translation. Shanka, conch shells. Dundubi, kettle drums. Goshena, by the sound of. Brahma, Vedic. Goshena, chanting. Cha, also. Ritvajam, of the priest. Vivesha, entered. Bhavanam, the palace. Viraha, the king. Stuyamanaha, being worshipped. Gatasmayaha, without pride. Translation. When the king entered the palace, conch shells and kettle drums were sounded. Priests chanted Vedic mantras, and professional reciters offered different prayers. But in spite of all this, but in spite of all this ceremony to welcome him, the king was not the least bit affected. Purport. The reception given to the king was full of opulence, yet he did not become proud. It is said, therefore, that great personalities of power and opulence never become proud. The example is given that a tree, which is full of fruits and flowers, does not stand erect in pride, but instead bends downwards to show submissiveness. This is a sign of the wonderful character of great personalities. Om Gyanativarandasya Gananjana Shvakaya Chakshudam Maditam Nena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Kam Karijavachalam Pungam Langai Tegidim Kripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurun Ditaridam Vancha Kapadribhishcha Kripa Sindhu Bevicha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we're probably going to read 6 too in the purport. But in 7, in this seventh text in the purport, Prabhupada says something interesting, but yeah, the seventh. Oh yeah, but I was just looking ahead, but it says something interesting. It says, Prabhupada says, there are different types of great personalities. Some are positive great personalities, some are comparative, and some superlative. But King Prithu exceeded all of them. But Prabhupada doesn't really go into explanation about. Oh, I see. Okay. I see. So like perfect, more perfect, most perfect. Okay. Alright, I see. Superlative. Okay. So yeah, King Prithu, Maharaj Prithu, says he's entering the palace, and there's all types of grand welcoming for him, celebration, and that's the beauty of Vedic culture. The beauty of Vedic culture is that there's many celebrations, and therefore it's not like you could say humdrum or depressing or a life like a life full of boredom, but there's a lot of things to celebrate. And even in, you could say, Vedic family life, whatever the child, the hair cutting ceremony, the first grain ceremony, the name giving ceremony, there's so many ceremonies. And with the ceremonies, the idea is supposed to be God-centered, Krishna-centered, and a celebration where Krishna consciousness is a big part of it. It's a main part. And I was talking the other day, I was speaking at the lounge, and I was saying how nowadays people have really completely distorted holidays. Like practically every single holiday has become just like a joke, in the sense that, for example, you have Christmas. In the Christian world, it's a very important day. It's the birth of Jesus. It's like Janmashtami or something. I mean, it's a very special day for real Christians, or for people who believe in Jesus. Yeah, and then it just becomes like Santa Claus, and where did he come from? But that just becomes completely. It just becomes strange, the whole thing, and then no one really thinks, practically speaking. Nobody thinks about Jesus, or just thinking about their family and buying. Yeah, what am I getting this year? Exactly. So. And what does Easter? I mean, Easter, they're celebrating the rising of Christ. He was crucified, and then he came back to life, and all that. So that's what they're celebrating. And somehow or other, this Easter bunny came. Big Easter bunny, huge Easter bunny. They dress. Yeah, it was a pagan ritual. Yeah. And then kids going around with little plastic. Going around searching. They go Easter egg hunting. They search for the eggs, full of candy. The plastic eggs, and so it just becomes completely mundane. All these different holidays. And St. Patrick's Day, so many days, and a lot of the times people just use this as an opportunity. Okay, hey, well, let's bring out the beer. No work. Yeah, no work on these days, and then let's bring out the alcohol, and then God's not involved, and so that's. So you could see how the progression of, or the digression of Kali Yuga. Progression of Kali Yuga has really, mixed things up. But in traditional Vedic times, it was holidays. They were Krishna conscious, or word God conscious, a cause for celebration in Krishna consciousness. And even, you could say, ordinary things, people would celebrate. Just like you could say, oh, well, cutting a child's hair, that's somewhat ordinary. It's maybe not some big celebration or something. Or feeding the first grains, it's But, this was all used for celebrating, or as a cause of celebration. And for example, like when a Brahmin would go to somebody's house, or when a sannyasi would go to somebody's house, it was a big deal. It wasn't just like, all right, hey, well, help yourself, the refrigerator's in the back. We have some food there, we have some drinks, go for it, Like one devotee. Anyways, I don't want to get critical over devotees or something, but he was making the point. He's from India, and he said he went to Alachua, Florida, and when a guest is at somebody's house within Vedic culture, the Indian culture, then the host, the person who owns the house, who's hosting the person, they really go out of their way. They cook for them, they make sure they're comfortable, all these different things. And the guest never cooks for themselves or anything like that. That's just that's out of the question. But this devotee from India, he said he was at this devotee's house in Alachua, Florida, and he said the devotee said, yeah, help yourself, the refrigerator's there, just kind of figure it out, work. So, it's a little different. But yeah, it was a big deal when a Brahmin or sannyasi would come to the house, and they would literally offer so much respect to them. They would sit them down, and they would actually offer arti, fire, how we offered to the deities, and bathing the feet, and offering garlands, and it was a whole thing. And quite a, you could say, and some people would say quite a dramatic thing, but it was just like normal. Now, if somebody, usually that doesn't happen. I mean, generally that doesn't happen at all. They insist on bathing every time you go over there? Okay. Yeah, so that was part of the culture. Yeah. Yeah, it's part of the culture. And just like when Krishna, he received his friend Sudama Brahman. He came and sat him down and offered him arti and water and garlands and all these different things. And it was considered a nice way to respect a saintly person. And the saintly person was humble about it. He said, I'm accepting this on behalf of Krishna. I'm not a special person, but this is the culture. And it's actually just a sign of affection, a sign of love and affection that people would do that to Brahmins and saintly persons. It wasn't like anything else. It's supposed to be a sign of affection. So yeah, you can see that that's quite amazing. And we see that like in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, devotees, they would serve him lunch very nicely, and then they would, take him and he would lay down. They would offer garland after the prasad and some sandalwood paste in the forehead, and then, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would lay down. And, the male, the husband of the household, he would massage Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's calves and feet, and they would take rest, and it was a whole thing. So, so this is what's happening with Prithu Maharaj, that he's coming back, and they're blowing conch shells, and they're playing kettle drums, and the priests are chanting Vedic hymns, and they're offering prayers and all these wonderful ceremony to welcome him back. And yeah, it was full of opulence, but it says here that he didn't become proud. So that's good. He didn't become proud. And again, I think Prabhupada would say that a saintly person comes to town, he's traveling, he comes to town, and the householders, they think a saintly renunciate comes to town, and The householder thinks, oh, we really want to serve him, we really want to offer proper respect and try to help him practically in whatever he needs. And then they're thinking he's so great. And then the saintly person or the traveling renunciate, they're thinking, I'm not great. I'm not great. I'm just an ordinary person. And so in this way, there's a healthy mood that's developed. Not that it's like a renunciate comes to town and all the householders or whoever, they're thinking, oh, who is he? Like, he's not really qualified, or like, I knew him 20 years ago and I know whatever. He did this, he did. There's like a kind of fault finding. They don't think he's saintly. And then the renunciate shouldn't also think, hey, well, I'm saintly, like, you should be offering proper respects. So that's the wrong mood. Because it's based on pride that the householders or the persons who are hosting or are supposed to be respecting the renunciate, or whoever it may be. It might just be a householder, like in the case of Sheshka Prabhu, his guru, whoever it may be. When they come, if there's too much pride, then the people think, oh, well, he's just an ordinary person. I don't have to serve him. Who is he, and why should I? Right? Because based on pride, they can't see the good in somebody. And then the renunciate or the guru or the traveling preacher, if they're thinking, oh, I'm so great, it's also based on pride. So in this way, it doesn't work out so well. So therefore, say Vedic culture or traditional Krishna culture is based on humility, that there's a lot of respect, there's a lot of affection, there's a lot of thoughtfulness within the culture. And Prabhupada's saying that a great personalities of power and opulence never become proud. And the example is given that a tree which is full of fruits and flowers does not stand erect in pride, but instead bends downwards to show submissiveness. So, like for example, it says that for when one sees a sannyasi, one in the renounced road of life, they should immediately offer obeisances. Now, there is an injunction that they shouldn't offer obeisances, persons shouldn't offer obeisances if they're in front of the deities, like the curtain's open, they shouldn't offer obeisances, unless it's one's guru. But anywhere else, when one sees someone in the renounced order, they should offer obeisances immediately. And maybe you could save it for a little later, we're almost. And Prabhupada would say, even the Chaitanya Charitamrita, that when one even sees a Mayavadi sannyasi, which, we're not into Mayavadis, we don't really, we don't agree with them, and Prabhupada rails against them in some of his books. We don't agree with them. Persons who think God is impersonal, we don't agree with them. But still, Prabhupada says, even when one sees a Mayavadi sannyasi, you offer obeisances. So what to speak of a Vaishnava sannyasi? But it says that the Vaishnava sannyasi, that when they see somebody, and even before that person offers obeisances to them, that they're offering obeisances to them, maybe not physically, but they're offering respects to them when they're seeing them. They're offering respects to them, and offering respects to the soul, the soul, and also offering respects to the super soul dwelling in their heart, even before the person offers obeisances. So, but it is a sign of respect, it is a sign of affection, it is a sign of recognizing that, okay, this person is a leader, this person's a teacher, this person's a respectable personality. And yeah, that's part of the culture. But it really is based on humility, because if one is accepting obeisances, people are bowing down, and they're not humble, then that can create a problem. Within their minds, they start, as the saying goes, right, it goes to their head. They can't digest it well. they get indigestion, spiritual indigestion. They get sick. So therefore, of course, none of us have to deal with that. It's not that, any of us in the room, we have to deal with anybody offering us obeisances, right? So that we might be grateful for that. You have to deal with it sometimes. I have to deal with it sometimes too, but not, at least not in our day-to-day, most of the time, lives. But you could imagine sometimes, you could imagine it must be a little challenging. You would think, if you're humble, it's not challenging, but it's a lot of pressure, because if you're a sannyasi, you come, any place you go to, as soon as people see you, what do? They offer obeisances. And then you go all over the world and they offer, everybody's, offering obeisances. So, but again, if one is humble, then it's not a problem. So this is what Prithu Maharaj is exemplifying, this humility. It didn't go to his head that, these people, they're blowing conch shells and playing kettle drums, and I'm sure some of them are offering obeisances as well. But he was just accepting all of this out of signs of affection, and also as a representative of God, because the king is a representative of God, at least traditional king is representative of God. So in that mood, I'm a representative of God, and I'll accept it on his behalf. That's what was going on with Prithu Maharaj. He didn't become proud. And he says that, and Prabhupada says, this is a sign of the wonderful character of great personalities. So, therefore, if one wants to accept any type of leadership position on any level, then they should really, what is it called, hone down? Hone? What is that? Hone? Well, hone in on their pride or false ego. Yeah, hone in on and destroy it. Because, one will have to accept respect if they're in any type of leadership role. And everybody is in some type of, more or less, everybody is in some type of leadership role, at least to some people. So, we should be responsible and not... we should work on ourselves internally so that when we have to deal with people offering us respects, because generally over time we'll have to deal with that, we're able to control ourselves. We're not like losing it. Oh, this person's offering so much respect. Just like Prabhupada said about sannyasis, he said when they go to a rich man's home, this could also refer to brahmacharis as well. When they go to a rich man's home, they shouldn't think, they walk into the house and think, oh wow, this is a really nice house, and they shouldn't think that, oh well, if I would have continued, if I wouldn't have became a renunciate, if I would have continued in my life, I could have had a house like this, I could have had whatever family and this and that. And so therefore Prabhupada said that they should always pray before they go into a householder's house. Oh Krishna, please do not let me become bewildered by this. So, working on ourselves so that when respect comes we don't lose control of ourselves, and also when we're in the midst of opulence we don't become bewildered. So, and this is what leaders are supposed to do. Like the king had so much opulence, but he wasn't bewildered. So. All right. So, does anybody have any questions or comments on this verse or purport? Yes. Oh, Mayavadis. You know what a Mayavadi is? All right. We'll explain that a little bit. So there's devotees, right? Which, first of all, there's Krishna, and there's three aspects to Krishna. In the Bhagavatam it says, how does that verse start? Yeah, tattva vidas tattva, yeah. Vadanti tat vidas yagyam Tattvam Yagya Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavaneti Shadvite. So there's Krishna, the personality of Godhead, and many people have a hard time understanding God to be a person. Like I've been talking to people lately, and like I'm trying to explain to them that, okay, God's a person. It means like we have a body, God also has a body. And they say, oh, well, what does that mean? Does he have a human body? And so no, a spiritual body. Oh, well, they have a hard time understanding that. It's a spiritual form, eternal, full of knowledge, full of bliss. And then I say, okay, well, imagine that you have a body, but there's no death, there's no old age, there's no disease. So this gives you an idea of what the spiritual body is like. So Krishna has a form, Satchidananda form, Vigraha, a form full of knowledge, bliss, and it's eternal. And yeah, he's a person. He has characteristics. He looks a certain way. Plays a flute. You may like that he plays a flute. So that's one aspect. And then another aspect is the effulgence coming from Krishna's body, the Brahman effulgence, Brahmajyoti, or Brahmajyotir, effulgence. So it's impersonal. There's no form there. It's impersonal light. And then the other one is, God in everybody's heart, Krishna in everybody's heart. So the Mayavadis, they are attached to the conception of the Brahman effulgence. And they specifically say that the personal form does not exist. It's a complete illusion, and anybody who accepts that, they're an illusion, and they're wrong. And so Prabhupada didn't like that. And we don't like that. Vaishnavas don't like that because pretty much what they're trying to do is saying, oh, Krishna, he's blind, and he's deaf, and he's lame, and he can't walk, and he can't talk, and he cannot see, and he cannot hear. So completely impersonal. So yeah, but even if you find, and then there's the Brahmavadis. Brahmavadis are personalities who they know about the impersonal conception, they're attached to it, but they just haven't really come in contact with devotees yet. But they're not offensive. They're not offensive. They're not out and out preaching against personalism. Whereas Mayavadis are offensive. They're preaching against personalism and completely rejecting Krishna as a person, where Brahmavadis don't do that. And the famous examples of Brahmavadis are the 4 Kumaras, the 4 boys in the Bhagavatam. Shukadev Goswami, before he heard the Bhagavatam. So they were attached to the impersonal conception, but as soon as they came in contact, like the 4 Kumaras, they came to Vaikuntha Loka, and then they smelled the tulsi leaves that were on Lord Vishnu's feet. They smelled the tulsi leaves, and when the fragrance of the tulsi leaves entered their nostrils, it said they became devotees. They became attached to the personal form of Vishnu. So, yeah, but the Mayavadis, but even if, Prabhupada says, even if one sees a Mayavadi, a sannyasi, they should still offer respects. They should actually bow down and offer respects. Because it's the idea of respecting the principle of renunciation. That's actually very important in society. That there are members of society who are detached from the world and detached from worldly life, detached from, so the idea of respecting that is important. And therefore, there's special respect given to persons who are detached. So, like, not just detached, because you could also be detached as a householder and as vanaprastha, but especially, someone who takes that vow of, detachment, like, I'm done with this world and I'm heading back to Godhead, and like that type of vow. So, all right. Does anybody have any other comments?
Just one comment. You mentioned several times the danger of receiving honor.
Yeah.
and how that can go to your head and affect your whole consciousness, which is obviously something we've had experience with. I once met a devotee who, I was kind of, I think I mentioned this before, I was on a train, it was only 2 years in the movement, and we were going from Mayapur to Hyderabad, it was 1975, and I got into, it wasn't a formal setting, I was kind of tired, I started making some comment about some devotee, and he immediately stopped me. So I don't want to hear it. He said, here's a piece of advice for you. Always try to keep glorifying the Lord especially, but also the devotees, any devotee, and that'll prevent you from getting into this mood of criticism, which is really preliminary. It's a sign of pride, to put someone else down and put you up, So the guard against this pride is to be looking for ways to always glorify the Lord and honor the other devotees. Even the most humble devotees glorify them. And then that guards you against the leaning into offense and losing your position, because it is dangerous. It's a great intoxicant to be honored and glorified. So the prevention for that is to, when you hear something, when someone's glorifying you, like I say, oh, glory to Srila Prabhupada. Glory to Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah, because then you remember Prabhupada.
And I remember, there's a whole explanation of how Bhaktisiddhanta, he reveals how he's thinking while he's sitting on the Vyasasan, who was this big dog, like that. So Prabhupada explained to us, when they offer you, Shikura Sharana Padma, whatever it may be, you're immediately giving it to Krishna. You're like a medium or a channel, channeling it all to Krishna. It's an important aspect of that position, difficult position to be in.
Yeah. It's wonderful. Yeah, it's a wonderful Vyasa Puja. What do you call that? Address by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Prabhupada's guru, and it's at one of his Vyasa Pujas. Vyasa Puja is a day where the spiritual master, he sits on the, very beautiful seat, and there's flowers and garlands and songs sung to him, and bathing at the feet, and all this arti and so many things like that. Homages, devotees are standing there and glorifying him. And then Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he has this wonderful address where he's explaining, why this is happening and the meaning behind it, and explaining his humility and how he thinks himself fallen and so many different things. But he's doing it because Lord Chaitanya orders people to become gurus, so it's as a service. So it's kind of amazing. We should read that sometime here. I don't think we've read it here in class before. I mean, there's some words that are a little, because Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, his vocabulary is quite high, but anyways, we have Dravida Prabhu here, and he could help us out. We also have modern technology, type in the dictionary, help us read that Vyasa Puja offering. My spiritual master, one time he read that at one of his Vyasa Pujas. But that's an important thing too. Like Dravida Prabhu was saying, somebody glorifies you. Oh, all glory to Prabhupada. Because without Prabhupada, then we wouldn't be doing what we're doing. And also, like my spiritual master, I always appreciated. For many years, it seems he had this really amazing idea, which I appreciate a lot. But at his Vyasa Puja, which he has every year somewhere in the world, he always has he's sitting, in a seat, and then always right next to him there's like a tulsi stand, like a little podium type of thing, and then there's a murti of Prabhupada there, small murti. And then Prabhupada's there, and Prabhupada's got a little cup of water, and Prabhupada has garlands on, and he's there with them. So I always, on a higher level, So that's always nice, that.
When the first murti of Prabhupada on the altar was installed, I think in 75 in Vrindavan. Till then we had pictures, the Parampara pictures. But Prabhupada insisted, and that his spiritual master be at an elevated seat. you know, above him, you know,
Oh,
and I noticed when I was in Phoenix, you know, they didn't have a Murti Prabhupada. They, of course, on the Vyasa-san, but they had, on the altar, they just had this parampara. But actually, Prabhupada was sitting a little above Bhaktisiddhanta, and I pointed out that you should crop that picture and redo it so that Prabhupada is a little bit lower.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's really something that he wanted, you know, to be there always.
Yeah. Yeah, because I've been in, anyways, I saw my spiritual master, do that at the Vyasa Pujas, and then I have this old picture, because he's still doing it nowadays, but I have this old picture that Madhu Mangal gave me, my spiritual master, and it looks like he's at a Vyasa Puja, because, he's sitting there, he's got a lot of garlands on, and then there's a Murti of Prabhupada right next to him with some, so it's been like a tradition he's been, doing, so it's nice. But then I was thinking about the respect also, because, we're talking about, when somebody gives us respect, we should be careful on how to accept it and all that. But also this idea of giving respect to others, that sometimes people, they kind of misplace their love and their affection and their respect to the wrong people. Like, there's some people who claim to be spiritual leaders, but they're just not, real spiritual leaders on so many different levels. So, devotees and people have to be careful about that as well, that who is a spiritual leader and who is a spiritual guide and what are their qualifications. So, which we won't get into now, but that's important. Okay, does anybody have any other question or comment? Vacho vegam manaso kroda vegam, jiva vegam adurpasta vegam, etan vegam yo vishaheta dira, sarvam epimam pritivim shashishyat. So, controlling the senses, the urges of anger and mind and tongue and belly and all these different senses, if one's able to check the forces of these senses to control them, says they're able to make disciples all over the world. So the idea of that self-control is very important. Because, so sometimes spiritual leaders, they do have the self-control, and then they become spiritual leaders, but then they lose it. They lose their self-control. I mean, it's sad, but sometimes they don't have the self-control, and they become spiritual leaders, and they lose it even more. So therefore, because why is Rupa Goswami saying that? Because the guru, they'll have to deal, traditionally, for the most part, extremely quite often, we're talking when we say like Diksha Guru or traveling preacher, we're speaking about a male figure, because they'll have to deal with fame. It's the 4 F's, Dravida Prabhu. The 4 F's: fame, fortune, followers, females. It's the 4 F's. So they'll have to deal with that. Females and fortune and fame and followers. So if they don't have self-control, then they just, they lose it. So therefore Rupa Goswami is saying self-control. So that's that's one way. So, all right. So tomorrow is text 6, which is a short purport. All right. Gantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.